I've been lucid dreaming my entire life, so what's it really like to live in other dimensions? First things first, this is going to be a very different video from usual. It's just going to be me talking at you without any edits whatsoever. Why? Because I've had a bit of a health scare, I'm quite sick at the moment, and I've not been able to do all the usual editing, but it's also given me a lot of time to reflect on my life as a lucid dreamer. So I thought I'd share with you some insights that have cropped up over this time. So this is going to be a very unique video. It's not for people with a short attention span, but if you want some genuine insights and content you won't find anywhere else, then this is for you. So buckle up, make a cup of tea, and let's start the journey. So most lucid dreaming videos focus on a handful of things: how to lucid dream, the cool things you can do in lucid dreams, what lucid dreaming is, that kind of thing. Very few videos explore the psychology of being a lucid dreamer, a long-term lucid dreamer. What is it really like to live a life in two different worlds, or actually many different worlds? What does that do to your mind? How does that make you feel as a person? How do you fit into society as someone who doesn't just live on one planet? And let's face it, there's no way to talk about lucid dreaming honestly without sounding like a complete and utter lunatic. Those of you who don't really understand what lucid dreaming is, you're going to think that I'm a complete madman, because some of the things I'm going to share are going to sound so unbelievably far-fetched and out there that you're going to think that I'm making it up. But the reality is, being a lucid dreamer for a lifetime is like living in a science fiction film. And that's also why I've picked this format, the talking head format without any fancy editing, because I want to just follow where my thoughts go so that you can experience what it's like from my perspective to be this interdimensional person trying to explain that experience to people who are just starting this journey or are just curious about what lucid dreaming is like. But I do need to throw in a bit of a disclaimer and give you a bit of context for all of this. So I'm a professional lucid dreaming teacher. I've written one of the world's best-selling books on the subject. People come to me for consultations and personal tuition, and many people think of me as something of a lucid dream skeptic. Now, the reason for that is, as someone who's teaching and trying to promote this subject, honestly, what I need to do as a teacher is be responsible. I need to share the tools, I need to teach you the skills required for lucid dreaming, and I want to do that in a way which isn't encumbered by beliefs or personal experiences, in a way that flavors the teaching in a certain direction, because what I do professionally is I teach the tools and the psychology of lucid dreaming, but my personal experience of lucid dreaming is very weird indeed. So this video is going to focus on what it's like to be a lucid dreamer as Daniel Love the person, rather than Daniel Love the teacher. So I suppose a good place to start is that word I've been throwing around a fair bit so far, which is multiverse, or other universes, or other dimensions. What do I mean by that? We've all heard of multiverse theory, where there's potentially an infinite number of alternate universes where anything and everything is possible. It's a really exciting theory. There's no hard evidence for it. But as someone who lucid dreams virtually every night when I put my mind to it, that's what it feels like to be a lucid dreamer. It feels like you're entering a portal into other universes. And that's really quite strange. Most beginner lucid dreamers get a small taste of this. You have maybe 5 to 10 minutes of this strange, perfectly realistic world where odd things are happening. And we all know that the scientific answer for that is that it's your brain creating these amazing models of the universe. But the reality is, when you spend a lot of time in that space, it does start to feel like you're actually visiting other universes. So let's get beliefs out of the way first. Do I believe that dreams or lucid dreams are you visiting other dimensions? Well, the answer is, I don't know. I'm just a human being like you, and we don't have the answers to these things. The scientific answer, which makes perfect sense to me, is that our brains are these amazingly complex neural computers that can model the world, and that dreams are basically virtual reality of the mind, where it creates a model of the world where various different things get processed. That's a perfectly valid explanation, and it's one that I'm absolutely happy to work with. That said, from a personal and emotional and psychological perspective, when you are a lucid dreamer and you're spending hours in what feel like other worlds, you can't help but relate to those things as if they are visiting other dimensions. That's the truth of it. It's really hard to compartmentalize the difference between your knowledge of the science and the personal experience. So from a personal perspective, I feel like a multidimensional explorer. From a teacher's perspective, I'm someone teaching that the mind is a world modeling, amazing piece of organic computing. And to put that into real world terms, you've probably dreamt of someone who's died who you've missed. Now, the reality of that experience is it's very touching, very emotional. It feels like some kind of experience with the afterlife or an alternate dimension where they're still alive. And telling ourselves that it's just our mind engaging this neural pathway, this memory of them, isn't very reassuring. It doesn't feel very tangible, and it doesn't really matter, does it? It really doesn't matter as long as you're not going to run with an idea to the point of absurdity and lose your grip on reality. But I'll give you an example. My grandfather and my grandmother, who have both passed away, both very dear to me. As a lucid dreamer, I can visit them and have experiences with them to this day, even though my grandfather is decades since he passed. So that's odd, because I'm still able to have a relationship with someone who no longer exists in this world, but I can visit them in another world. How does a human brain process that? And more importantly, how do you, as someone who is having those experiences, relate to the average person who doesn't? So that's another aspect of lucid dreaming, which I think a lot of people don't consider when they're getting into this, is that by becoming this multi-dimensional traveler, whatever you want to call it, you are, by definition, distancing yourself from the average person. Most people don't have these experiences, or they have them fleetingly in their non-lucid dreams and shrug them off. But if you're someone who is consciously walking through the portal of the mind into what seems like an alternate dimension, you no longer can relate to the average human being. And this is why, as a teacher, I want to anchor people to the science, because the science gives us a rational understanding of what's going on. It stops us from straying too far into la-la land. But that doesn't mean that the human experience doesn't feel like you've gone completely down the rabbit hole. If you can hold on to the science, if you can understand why your brain and how your brain does these things, that can keep you grounded, even though you're having absolutely bonkers experiences. Does that mean that the science is the final answer, that everything is a hallucination of the mind? Well, the evidence points that way more than it points to tuning into other dimensions, but we're still primates on a rock. We barely understand what we are, so we can't answer that with 100% certainty. It would be insane and very arrogant to do that. We must always keep an open mind to the possibility. Perhaps when we dream, our mind does create hallucinations, but maybe those hallucinations tune us into different frequencies of the universe, and we see other potentials of the infinite possibilities of existence. But I don't want this video to get caught up in beliefs and what ifs and maybe this is true, etc, 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 because that discussion will go on forever, because none of us can truly have the final answer. For me, as a teacher, the science is enough. It pretty much cleanly explains what's going on, but as an individual, I keep an open mind to perhaps I do visit other dimensions. Who knows? What I do want to focus on is what it's like when you have infinity at your fingertips, when there is virtually an unlimited canvas of possibilities in front of you. Now, initially, when people start out lucid dreaming, and I did this back when I was a child, you live out all sorts of different fantasies. Now, even that can get a bit weird. Let's say you're a teenager and there's someone you find attractive, and then you have lucid dreams where you're having a relationship with them, and then you wake up to this world and you're not, and you have to process that, and you have to work out who you are and what you want, and all of that malarkey. So even wish fulfillment can be quite undermining in your way of interfacing with the real world, whatever that is. So even lucid dreaming from a basic wish fulfillment perspective is something that can pull the rug from beneath your feet. But infinity is pretty big, and there's lots of possibilities out there. So we've spoken about talking to deceased people, but what about going back in time, fiddling with a few possibilities, and then moving forward in time and seeing how your life would have been if you'd gone down an entirely different path? I've had lucid dreams where I've met myself in all different kinds of incarnations. I've been married with kids and very happy in that situation, married with kids and very unhappy in that situation. I've been a traveler, a CEO, all sorts of strange things. I've visited the many, many different versions of me, and there are many more I've yet to explore. And this is just focusing around ego and self, because that is still a very limited part of this universe of the possibilities. Once you've been doing this for a long time, you start to want to expand beyond just your life. In my videos, I often speak about the nature of self, and this is one of the reasons for that, because when you start to tinker with the nature of your past and see the many possibilities of what you could have been, then you start to realize that self is pretty much an illusion. It is the end of an equation of the mathematics of your life. And you could have been many, many other things. So personality becomes malleable. But all of this is still bathing in ego. It is very, very self-obsessed, because there is more to the universe than you. And after a while, as a lucid dreamer, you start to think, well, that's all very interesting, and etc. But what is the universe itself? And what is self? Is self just an expression of the universe? And then you start to move far beyond just exploring the possibilities in your own life. This is why I find the wish fulfillment aspect of lucid dreaming so very beginner, so very basic, so very short-sighted, because you're basically just indulging in your primate urges and obsessing with the nature of your own life. What is a wish fulfillment? What is wish fulfillment? It is simply diving into who you are, this particular version of you, and then doing the thing that this particular version of you really wants to do. But you're much more than that, and the universe is much more than that. So once you get past navel-gazing and ego-bathing, you might start to look beyond this planet, beyond your life, out into the cosmos, inwards into alternate dimensions, even those where you never existed, or where the human race never became the dominant species. There are so many different aspects of infinity that you can explore. One of my favorite, that I still do very regularly to this day, is to go to entirely unlikely, impossible backwaters of the universe. Places where beings of light exist, or advanced AI has infiltrated the entire universe and is processing the very question of the nature of reality itself. Lucid dreaming, when you do this regularly, when you start to grab the reins of what is possible, when you're surfing the waves of infinity, you don't know which shores you will crash upon. But as you do, your experience of this universe becomes much wider, much more alive, more varied. And then when you return to this reality, your base reality, upon waking, then it starts to feel more comfortable, a lot more reassuring, because you've been out in the wild west of the cosmos. There's a tendency of beginner lucid dreamers to be very, very self-focused. They kind of consider the world of lucid dreaming to be a space in which you are a god and you can do anything. But even that is a layer of the onion of reality that you need to break through. This is why I talk about humility so much, because oftentimes, as you get further and deeper down the rabbit hole of lucid dreaming, out into the outskirts of the cosmos and reality, then you start to realize how insignificant your sense of self is, and how malleable that is. You start to see the interconnectedness, the reflection of self in every other sentient being. And then you start to realize that you yourself are an expression of an infinite and chaotic universe, and you could be anything at all. And you might think, well, doesn't that make you incredibly spiritual? Because suddenly you're faced with the overwhelming question of what all this is. But there's a catch to that as well, because once you have infinity at your fingertips, you can explore the philosophies and the spirituality of this one planet in this gigantic universe, and then you can, if you wish, travel back in time and meet Buddha, or meet one of the many different multiverse versions of Buddha and see what he was like. And in my experience of that, in some he was an enlightened being, in some he was a charlatan, and then that starts to make you question the nature of truth itself. What can we truly know is real? What is the essence of truth, and who is asking that question? And there's really no way to escape any of these riddles, because if you go with the incredibly philosophical side of things, then you end up down one rabbit hole. But if you come back to the simple answer that this is your amazing brain creating amazing hallucinations, then what does that tell you about you? How amazing are you to be able to create an infinite number of possible universes and to experience so many different things? If there's one thing lucid dreaming will definitely do if you follow this thread to its logical conclusion, is that you will end up surrounded by questions and very, very few answers. And you will realize that each question and every new answer is itself a new question. This is you embracing the insane nature of infinity. And honestly, I don't think there's anything more humbling than that, because being a lucid dreamer, having followed this particular thread in my life and having explored the fractal bizarreness of all this, one thing you can't help but admit is that nobody knows what's going on, and it makes you get a little bit funny when people come out with these incredibly confident answers to the understanding of the nature of the universe. Even the great spiritual teachers, you want to say to them, you're an ape on a rock in space too. Can you not see that even the vast expanse of space is just a tiny grain of sand in all that is possible? Humility is the cornerstone of lucid dreaming. It's what makes you lucid, because first you have to admit what you don't know and be open to realizing that you're dreaming. But humility is also the final expression of lucid dreaming, because the further you go, the more you explore, the more you realize how insignificant you are, how little you know. And you might ask, is all this a little bit scary? Well, frankly, yes. But no more scary than you existing right now in this universe is. Only as a lucid dreamer, or at least lucid dreaming as I teach it, what you're actually doing is accepting it, admitting it, realizing that's what this is. Even if you kept your head in the sand your entire life, you don't get to escape the incredible, infinite, fractal mystery of existence. But as a lucid dreamer, following it as I teach it, what you're really doing is saying, oh, okay, I'm just going to have to accept that, and I'm going to look into it. Don't expect final answers. I mean, it's arrogant to think that that's even possible as an ape on a rock in space, but do expect some of the most mind-boggling experiences beyond your imagination. I have been to the heart of stars in different dimensions. I have spoken with creatures of infinite intelligence and felt like an amoeba floating around them. There is no end to the possibilities of infinity. You can flip through dimensions like Rick and Morty if you want to and never find a satisfying answer. So I suppose there's one thing that really does have to be addressed. If you're interested in lucid dreaming as a form of escapism, if you find this world too much to bear and you want to escape into another, good luck with that, because you're not escaping anything. You will be forever in the fractal mystery of existence. And even if you're there trying to get your wishes granted, there's going to come a point where you start to think, why do I have these wishes? Who is having these wishes? And how is it possible that they can be granted in this strange seeming alternate dimension? And those are threads that don't lead to escapism, they lead to facing the cosmos face on. And as an example of just how weird all of this really is, I've seen this video before I even made it. As I've been relatively unwell and sleeping a lot for the past week, I visited an alternate version of me. I asked them what video they'd just made, and they made this one, or at least one that was very similar to this. That's how bonkers this can get. I suppose if there's one thing I've learned in all of my travels in lucid dreaming is that there is a currency in the multiverse. And that currency is honesty and decency. It doesn't matter where I've been, in which of the many dimensions of lucid dreaming, those things always give you something positive back. So that's probably quite an important lesson, really, isn't it? For me, lucid dreaming has been a lifelong journey, but what I think it really is, what it boils down to, is innate human curiosity. If you're the kind of person that when you're sitting and thinking, you wonder, what is all of this? And you're willing to ask difficult questions and not just accept simplistic answers, then exploring lucid dreaming becomes inevitable because it's such a valuable tool to do that. And I'm aware that many of the things I've said in this video, which don't even scratch the surface of my adventures, many of those things sound completely bonkers. But hold on a second. Look around you. Don't take this moment for granted. What are you? What is this? How bonkers is this reality already? Lucid dreaming just reflects that. It just shines a light on the insanity but beauty of existence. I'm Daniel Love, and if you've enjoyed this video, you might enjoy one of the videos on the screen right now. I'll see you there.